All right. First video recording of the year. And I'm going to be talking to you guys about the skill check. So, second period kids, we will revisit this on Monday. Bring any questions that you have. Third period kids, I know I will see you guys in class on Friday. But this still is a good refresher on what each section of the skill check should include. So I split screen with the iBook because I thought maybe that I could show you just some examples of different terms and stuff that you can put down. But this is just to start out. My best advice is to read the entire iBook first before you do anything on the skill check. And I say that because a lot of the skills are asking for you to like kind of pick like big picture things or like the most important things from the chapter that you took away. So I just think it's important to read first, and you can annotate stuff inside of the iBooks. This is not the iBook. This is a PDF, I think. So, but you can see like you can be annotating like as you read. So if you think you see something that's important that you want to add to your skill check later, then you can annotate in the iBook. So anyways, so this is your skill check over here. And, pretty simple as far as like what you're doing. This is going to be APUSH chapter 1. And the chapter title is, I should know this, but it's the Americas, Europe, and Africa. And you'll write this in. So on and so forth in there. And then, of course, you'll put your name. And again, I'm doing this on Notability for the sake of the video. But, and this is time period 1. Chapter 1, time period 1. Okay. So that's the easiest part. So now I've read the chapter. And task 1 is to choose 5 significant events. It can be people, events, battles, laws that are passed, political debates, just, anything that you see in the reading is going to be, you're going to choose 5, main ideas here. So unlike maybe past textbooks, there's not a ton of like bolded like vocabulary terms in the iBook. So I'm just going to start with something, random like the Aztecs, because I think the Aztecs are really important. And so we're going to pretend that I've already read. And so I'm going to read through, about the Aztecs here. And I'm going to see, I'm going to say, okay, so the Aztecs were reading at 16th century. So by 1519, when Cortez has arrived, the settlements, blah, 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 we're looking through. The year doesn't like necessarily have to be like a specific year, but we're going to say like, in the early 1500s, 1520. And then you're just going to give a definition of who the Aztecs were. So a large civilization, so on and so forth. And you do that for 5 terms. And you get to choose any terms, events, people, important things that are going on. I think, the Cahokia are an important, group, and you could put that down. But like, you don't want like vocab terms, like just like a word. You don't want that. You want, actual people and events from the reading here, okay, Black Death. Sure. Okay. So that's the easiest part. Now, context to me ends up being sometimes one of the more difficult skills. But with context, basically what you're wanting to do is if you think about you're telling a story to a friend and you're getting really excited and you're going to tell them this story, and the friend stops you and they say, hold on, back up. I need some background information before I can understand the story that you're about to tell. And that's what context is. Like, what's going on before, during, and after the time period or the event that you're talking about that like makes this event or this time period what it is. So like giving background information. I saw something years ago about context being compared to like Star Wars. So if you've ever seen a Star Wars movie, at the beginning of the movie, it says like in a galaxy far, far away, and it gives all this background information into what's going on in the galaxy. That's kind of what you're doing here. So in 2 to 3 sentences, you want to explain what's going on in this chapter. What's going on in America in this chapter. So it's like kind of a summary where you're giving like background information. So, this is where you would include things like that the Native Americans were already living here in America, and there was different types of Native American groups that lived differently, so on and so forth. And then that led up to the European arrival and, relationships building between those two groups. So context is your background information. Giving background info / like kind of a summary. Okay. Next is comparison. Comparison is pretty simple, but I want to, so in here it says, after reading the entire chapter, please describe similarities and or differences between different historical developments or processes. So, for example, you could choose, okay, what I want you to do is make sure you're being specific. So I'm going similarities. And actually I'm going to erase this. So let's say similarities, make sure you're specific on that. Say, okay, write down, okay, I'm giving similarities between the Aztecs and the Mayans. And then you want to list, similarities. Or if you're doing differences, you can do it in a T-chart. Here's your Aztecs, here's your Mayans. Or if you want to practice being complex, you can give both similarities and differences. And if you do go that route, then you would put Aztecs, Mayans. You're going to go like this, and you'll say like, okay, similarities, and then differences, and you'll put both. Just make sure, the more specific you can be of saying like, I'm talking about similarities, I'm doing similarities and differences. Here are the groups that I'm going to compare, so on and so forth. Like the more specific stuff you're putting in there, the easier it'll be for me to grade. Okay, so causation, you're going to pick an event from the chapter, and you're going to describe the causes and effects. And so I think the best thing to do here is, let's say your event is the Black Death. I only say that because I saw it earlier. What I would do is I would say, here are the causes, and I would give an explanation, and here are the effects of this event. The important thing is that you're noting somewhere at the top or like somewhere on the side what the event is that you're talking about. Okay, for my favorite skill, that is continuity and change over time. And for these early skill checks, we're going to ask that you choose to do, you can do both continuities and changes. Or you can just choose to do one for now. So it says and or. So for example, what is something that's remaining constant throughout this chapter? So you're going to read and you're going to come up with an example of something that remains constant in the chapter. I'm thinking like just off the top of my head, like we're going into, the existence of slavery and the slave trade in Africa. Like maybe that's something that's like, or remains constant. And then if you're thinking, okay, actually, I think what's easier is change, like then you can find something that's like a massive change. Like to me, I'm thinking off the top of my head that there are massive changes with just simply who's coming to America. And you explain that. And I want you to try to use specific examples that show me that you've read. So make sure you're using specific examples. Okay. And then the last task is task 6, and that is argument development, or basically writing a thesis. So what it says here is make a historically defensible claim in the form of an evaluative thesis. So basically you're just writing a historical argument that you can defend with evidence from the reading. So, I don't want to give too much away, but I don't want to give you guys a thesis to write, but, if you're reading through this chapter, you want to make sure it's arguable. So you could say, so-and-so European country had the greatest impact on Native Americans, at the turn of the 16th century, right? And you choose which European country you want to fill in the blank with there. And then you would give 3 pieces of evidence to show that European country had the biggest impact, or the greatest impact, or the most positive impact. But the key is being arguable. You can't just say the Spanish impacted America. I need to know that the Spanish had, what type of impact did they have? Make an argument using an adjective. And then down here at the end, this is just blank space, but if you're feeling crazy and you want to do a little smiley face, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you can put pictures down there. So pretty much that sums up what the skill check is looking for. I hope that helps, since I won't see you in class. The nice thing about this is that I can send you, or you can send me, copies of your skill check. I can look at them, on Monday. We'll have class time for me to look at them before we turn them in on Tuesday. So message me with any further questions. Otherwise, I hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you back on Monday.